Apex Consolidated had two rising stars on their management track, me and Jason Cole. When Chloe Sullivan was 25, Jason died in an accident, and I became the Sullivan family's son-in-law. After we married, my wife and I were the picture of a perfect couple, respectful and deeply in love. I gave everything for her and for the Sullivan family. I thought we would live out our days in blissful happiness. But then, on my 40th birthday, my wife suddenly demanded to place Jason's ashes in our bedroom, replacing the space that had always been mine. I was consumed by fury. I cried, I argued, I even screamed. But she was resolute. To make me give up for good, she admitted she had already drafted her will. The moment she died, I would be thrown out with nothing. The final blow came when I learned that the daughter I had loved and raised for over a decade, Lily, was actually Jason's child. The shock was so great, I coughed up blood on the spot and died right in front of my wife. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the final selection at Apex Consolidated. Mr. Sullivan sat in the conference room, his expression grave. Chloe, you're not getting any younger. It's time to make a decision. Go on, tell us, her mother said with a kind smile. Who have you chosen as your executive assistant? She then added, my money's on Liam. You two have been inseparable since you were kids. Everyone at Apex knew it was true. In both looks and ability, I was miles ahead of Jason Cole. I was the unspoken, pre-selected candidate. But in this life, Chloe looked at me with cold indifference. In her eyes, I saw a deep-seated loathing, a familiar hatred. And in that instant, I understood. She had been reborn, too. Fine. If you're so obsessed with Jason, then I'll give you what you want. I stood up voluntarily. Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Sullivan, I began. I don't believe my skills and experience are sufficient for the role of Ms. Sullivan's assistant. Therefore, I am withdrawing my name from consideration. Chloe was visibly stunned. A flicker of shock crossed her face before her expression hardened back into a mask of ice. She said nothing, simply turned and hurried out of the conference room. I knew exactly where she was going. At this point in time, Jason hadn't had his accident. There was still time to save him. I stood my ground, a bitter smile touching my lips. A decade of marriage in my past life, all of it a lie, a mirage. Liam, what did you just say? Mr. Sullivan's voice boomed from the head of the table. I lifted my head and met his gaze. This was the man who had once treated me like a son, but now his face was a canvas of confusion. I took a deep breath, my voice so calm it felt foreign even to me. Mr. Sullivan, since Chloe has already made her choice, I am withdrawing from the selection process. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan exchanged bewildered glances. But recalling their daughter's abrupt departure, they were at a loss for what to say to comfort me. I quietly returned to my corporate apartment to pack my things, preparing to leave. The next day, my social media feed was flooded with the official announcement from Chloe and Jason. In the photos, Chloe was nestled in Jason's arms, her smile as bright as a spring morning. Jason held her waist, his eyes brimming with affection. I swiped away the notifications without a change in expression. Around noon, a commotion erupted downstairs. I stood at the window and watched as Chloe, arm in arm with Jason, strode brazenly through the main entrance of Apex Consolidated. A few moments later, a heated argument echoed from the executive offices. Chloe's voice was sharp. Dad, you promised. Whoever became my assistant would be in charge of the East Waterfront project. Why is Liam still holding the project files? Mr. Sullivan explained patiently, Chloe, Liam has been heading the waterfront project from the start. Switching leadership now would hurt the company's bottom line. I don't care. Chloe cut him off. I made my decision. Jason is my assistant. Are you telling me you'd rather trust an outsider than your own daughter? The East Waterfront redevelopment was Apex's most critical project in years. In my previous life, I had successfully secured and completed it, catapulting Apex to the top of the city's corporate ladder. It was the achievement that cemented my position in the company's core leadership. Chloe knew this perfectly well. A few minutes later, the secretary escorted me to the office. Mr. Sullivan sat behind his massive mahogany desk, looking exhausted. He gestured for me to sit, his fingers drumming a dull, rhythmic beat on the tabletop. Liam, there's something I need to discuss with you. You don't have to say it, sir. I interrupted, my voice unervingly calm. I understand. Mr. Sullivan looked up, a flash of surprise in his eyes that quickly melted into profound guilt. For years, he had mentored me, grooming me as his successor. But in this situation, he was powerless. He was nearing retirement, and someone had to take over the company. He sighed heavily. You've been in charge of the East Waterfront project this whole time. A sudden change isn't right. He paused. But you know Chloe. She's even more stubborn than I am. I nodded. I understand, Mr. Sullivan. I took a prepared file folder from my jacket, along with the USB drive that symbolized my role as project lead, and placed them gently on the desk. This folder contains all the project data and handover documents. The password is the one Chloe always uses. Mr. Sullivan stared at the USB drive, his fingers trembling slightly. I had carried that drive with me since the day I joined the company. It was an extension of myself. In my past life, it had never left my side, not even in the moment before my death. Seeing my placid expression, Mr. Sullivan opened his mouth to speak, but then thought better of it. I stood up and bowed deeply. Mr. Sullivan, thank you for your guidance and support all these years. I will forever be grateful. The office door was suddenly pushed open. Chloe strode in on high heels, Jason trailing closely behind her. She wore a striking blue suit that made her skin look like porcelain, a breathtaking sight. But the eyes that once gazed at me with affection now held nothing but icy contempt. Dad, is it settled? She didn't even spare me a glance, walking directly to her father's side. Mr. Sullivan nodded wearily and pushed the folder and USB drive toward her. Liam has agreed to the handover. Before Chloe could say a word, Jason eagerly snatched the USB drive, his face alight with an excitement and triumph he couldn't hide. The sight made Mr. Sullivan frown slightly. Wait, I said suddenly. Chloe's brow furrowed. Liam, don't tell me you're having second thoughts. I shook my head and pulled a separate document from the file folder. This is the core, confidential file for the East Waterfront project. It includes the private agreements with city officials and special clauses with several key suppliers. Chloe took the file, her suspicion evident. As she flipped through the pages, her frown deepened. If these terms are mishandled, I said calmly, the entire project could lose at least $100 million. I'm sure someone with Jason's abilities can handle it, right? A strange look flashed across Jason's face, but he quickly masked it with his usual confident smirk. He laughed. You worry too much. I know what I'm doing. I said no more. Jason was just a fresh graduate with an overseas MBA, completely clueless about the realities of local business operations. The success of the East Waterfront project depended entirely on the groundwork I had laid and the delicate negotiations I had conducted with various powerful interests. A single misstep could bring it all crashing down. You can go now, Chloe said coldly. As of today, you have nothing more to do with Apex Consolidated. I was about to turn and leave when Jason spoke up. Hold on. His voice was laced with deliberate arrogance. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Since Liam is no longer in the running, I guess that means he's not an Apex employee anymore, right? Jason said. According to company policy, he shouldn't be staying in the corporate housing. He should be moving out. Immediately. What do you think, Chloe? The air in the office went still. I slowly turned, my gaze traveling past Jason's gloating face to land directly on Chloe. Is that what you want? She stood there, her expression shifting rapidly. Her eyelashes fluttered, her gaze darting away. Finally, she avoided my eyes completely. Those few seconds of silence were more powerful than any words. Mr. Sullivan suddenly slammed his hand on the desk. This is ridiculous. Liam has been with Apex for 3 years. Even if he's not the assistant, he's still a part of this company. Dad, Chloe finally spoke. Jason's right. Since a decision has been made, we need to make a clean break. I looked at her, and to her surprise, I smiled. It was a calm, detached smile that seemed to unnerve her. Mr. Sullivan, since this is Chloe's decision, I will respect it. I looked at each person in the room, my eyes resting last on Chloe. She instinctively turned away, her fingers twisting the hem of her jacket. And since we're settling things, I continued, my voice soft but carrying enough weight to silence the entire office. I believe there are some accounts that need to be cleared. I took over the company's new business development 3 years ago, to the day. Jason let out a snort of derision, but a sharp look from Chloe silenced him. The West Loop Commercial Center project, a total investment of $270 million, with a net profit of $80 million. The South Side Revitalization Project, a total investment of $150 million, with a net profit of $50 million. The Port Authority Expansion Project, total investment. I listed them out one by one. With every number I cited, Mr. Sullivan's face grew more somber. All told, in 3 years, I have generated over $500 million in net profit for Apex Consolidated. Chloe bit her lip. She knew what those numbers meant. In our past life, those projects were the foundation that had transformed Apex into one of the city's top corporations. Apex supported me for 3 years, and I made Apex $500 million, My tone remained even. As of today, we're even. Apex owes me nothing, and I owe Apex nothing. I paused. I will leave with nothing. We are completely disconnected from this day forward. Jason suddenly sneered. That's a nice speech. But is this what leaving with nothing looks like? He stepped forward and roughly grabbed the front of my shirt. This suit must be worth a few thousand, right? He yanked at my cuff, revealing my Longines watch. Tisk TSK. This watch is at least $3,000. He then pulled my phone from my pocket. And this is the latest model. Over 1,000. He gestured at me. All of this. Wasn't it all paid for with company money? I let him manhandle me, my eyes locked on Chloe. Her nails were digging into her palms, but she remained silent. Chloe, I asked softly, was our history, all those years, really worth nothing? Her eyelashes trembled. She opened her mouth, then closed it. In the end, nothing came out. I thought that by reliving this life, I had let go. But in that moment, it felt like a piece of my heart was being carved out, an agony that made it hard to breathe. Suppressing the emotion, I began to unbuckle my watch. The metallic click echoed sharply in the dead silent office. Liam, Mr. Sullivan shot to his feet. You don't have to do this. Mr. Sullivan. I cut him off, continuing to remove the watch. Rules are rules. The suit jacket, the tie, the watch, the leather shoes. I took them off one by one, folding them neatly on the floor. Finally, I even removed my socks, standing barefoot on the cold marble. Jason's face was a mask of victorious glee, while Chloe's had turned deathly pale. When I started unbuttoning my dress shirt, she finally couldn't bear to watch and turn away. That's enough, Mr. Sullivan roared. Liam, stop it. I calmly folded my shirt and placed it on top of the suit. From now on, I'm just me, I said. My name is Liam Miller, and I am no longer an employee of Apex. When I walked out the back door of Apex Consolidated, all I had was a rusty old bicycle. It was a birthday gift from Chloe from my first year at the company. It was the only thing that was truly mine. For all these years, it had been stored in the company's underground garage. Outside, a crowd of reporters had somehow gathered. The moment they saw me, they swarmed. Mr. Miller, how does it feel to be kicked to the curb by Apex? We hear you weren't even allowed to take your underwear. Is that true? The blinding camera flashes forced me to squint. Let me through, I said, my voice hoarse, unrecognizable. A wave of laughter rippled through the crowd. The female reporter, leading the pack, deliberately aimed her camera at my lower body. Her face was familiar. I remembered seeing her at one of Jason's parties. I swung my leg over the bicycle and wobbled through the throng. The reporters pursued me like sharks that had scented blood. I finally shook them off by turning into a quiet alley. As I emerged from the alley, a white Bentley suddenly blocked my path. The window rolled down, revealing a stunningly beautiful face. Mr. Miller, my name is Ava Sterling from Sterling Capital, she said. My grandfather would like to meet you. Would that be possible? I was speechless. Ava Sterling, the renowned heiress of the investment world. The Sterling family, a true powerhouse dynasty. In my past life, it took me a decade just to get a foot in their door. Now, they were seeking me out. I stood up straight and gave a solemn nod. It would be my honor. The next day, inside Apex Consolidated, Chloe was staring blankly at her phone screen. The top trending story. Apex executive Liam Miller loses top job. Kicked out. Rides away nearly naked. Comments flooded in. What a disgrace. So pathetic. I heard if it wasn't for Ms. Sullivan's mercy, he wouldn't have even kept his boxers. Yesterday, he was a high-flying project director. Today, he's worse than a beggar. How tragic. What's the surprise? That's what happens to pet dogs of the rich. She clicked on the video, and the image of that shirtless figure riding away on a bicycle made her heart clench. When the camera panned to the rusty old bike, her fingers froze. Chloe, what are you looking at? Jason wrapped his arms around her from behind. His eyes fell on the phone, and he burst out laughing. Ha ha, this is priceless. It was totally worth the money. I paid a dozen media outlets to wait for him. Chloe froze. You arranged for the reporters? Of course, Jason said, kissing her proudly. Now the whole city knows what a loser Liam Miller is. No one will ever question your choice again. Chloe forced a smile, but an inexplicable irritation gnawed at her. The image of that dilapidated bicycle was seared into her mind. After a few seconds, she asked suddenly, Jason, have you learned how to ride a bike yet? Jason scoffed. Why would I ride a rickety bike when I have a car with 4 wheels? I'm not a pauper like Liam. He added, don't you remember? I've always been terrified of getting hurt. His words hit Chloe like a physical blow. She clicked on the video again, carefully examining Liam's body. Seeing her so absorbed, Jason grew jealous. So shameless, riding a bike with no shirt on in front of all those people, he said sourly. It's a good thing we kicked him out, or he would have disgraced Apex. Chloe didn't hear him. She was looking for something she couldn't find. After a moment of hesitation, she pushed Jason aside and ran up to the second floor, to Liam's now empty office. She found his old storage box and frantically flipped through photos of the three of them. In a thick album, there was only one picture that included Liam. It was taken a few years ago during a company retreat at the beach. In the photo, she was holding Jason's hand, smiling radiantly. Liam stood silently in the background, holding her purse. He looked like a lowly assistant, completely out of place. But she could clearly see his arm was wrapped in gauze. Chloe went rigid, and the memory came flooding back like a tidal wave. That summer, she had worked late and gotten into a car accident on her way home, leaving her bruised and bleeding. As her consciousness faded, a young man lifted her onto the back of a bicycle and pedaled furiously. The mountain road was rough, and the pain from her injuries was unbearable. Instinctively, she opened her mouth and bit down hard on the boy's arm. Flesh tore, and blood flowed freely. But he didn't make a sound. Instead, he comforted her gently. Don't be afraid. We're almost at the hospital. When she woke up, the first person she saw was Jason. A nurse told her she was incredibly lucky. A boy had pedaled over 10 miles on a bike in the middle of the night, risking everything to get her to the hospital, collapsing from exhaustion in the hallway afterward. Lying in her hospital bed, Chloe had asked Jason if he was the one who had saved her. At that moment, Jason had looked stunned, but he hadn't denied it. Chloe's body was frozen, her breathing hitched. At this moment, there was nothing left to misunderstand. All this time, she had believed Jason was her savior. That's why she had harbored such special feelings for him, why she had been so unable to get over his death. Only now did she realize how tragically wrong she had been. Chloe collapsed, the photo album slipping from her hands. She sank to the floor, muttering to herself, wrong. It was all wrong. She remembered Liam standing silently in the corner of the photo, remembered the wound on his arm, remembered that rusty old bicycle. He was the one. He was the one who had risked his life to save her. Night fell, and Apex Consolidated was aglow with lights. Executives arrived for a celebratory dinner, their faces plastered with smiles, their mouths full of praise for Jason. Beaming with pride, Jason played the part of the new assistant director, graciously accepting everyone's congratulations. Chloe, held in his arm, wore a smile that was slightly stiff. After everyone was seated, one chair remained empty. It was Liam's seat, a spot that had been his for years. Jason noticed it immediately, and his face darkened. He released Chloe and strode over to the chair. With a forceful shove, he sent it clattering to the floor. He turned to the old secretary and barked. What's this? Why is an outsider's chair at this table? Have you lost your mind? The old secretary bowed his head, apologizing profusely. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. It was my oversight. I'll remove it right away. The room fell silent. The executives looked at each other, some sipping their tea, others pretending to organize their papers. No one dared to speak. Mr. Sullivan's brow was furrowed, and Mrs. Sullivan looked like she wanted to say something, but held her tongue. Just as the secretary was about to move the chair, Chloe suddenly stood up. It's just an extra chair. What's the big deal? Her voice was quiet but carried an undeniable authority. Leave it. Jason whipped his head around, staring at her in disbelief. Chloe, what are you trying to say? Chloe didn't look at him, addressing the secretary instead. Put it back. Let's not have people thinking Apex lacks basic decency. The secretary hesitated for a second, then respectfully righted the chair and returned it to its place. Jason's face cycled through shades of red and white, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. He forced a strained smile. Chloe's right. I was being too sensitive. He sat back down, but his eyes were dangerously dark. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Mr. Sullivan cleared his throat and raised his glass. This is a celebration. Everyone relax. Let's start with a toast. The others quickly followed suit, the clinking of glasses momentarily breaking the heavy silence. After the toast, Jason placed a piece of fish on Chloe's plate. Chloe, I remember you love fish. Try this. Chloe stared at the piece of fish, suddenly remembering how Liam would painstakingly remove every single bone before giving it to her. The man in front of her didn't even know she was afraid of fish bones. The table was full, the room abuzz with conversation, but without Liam, Chloe felt an unprecedented emptiness. She picked at her food for a few minutes before standing up. Please, enjoy your meal. I'm going upstairs. Chloe, what's wrong? Jason asked, feigning concern. I'm not feeling well, she replied curtly, leaving without another look at him. As she passed Liam's old office, an unseen force seemed to pull her inside. She flipped on the lights and was stunned to find the room completely bare. Everything that had belonged to Liam was gone, as if he had never worked there at all. A tremor ran through Chloe, and something inside her snapped. She stormed back downstairs and, in front of everyone, demanded, "Who touched Liam's office?" The chatter and laughter died instantly. Chloe gripped the staircase railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. The old secretary glanced nervously at Jason before timidly admitting, "Miss Sullivan, it was Mr. Cole. He gave the order this afternoon." Jason put down his chopsticks, a casual smile still playing on his lips. "Chloe, why are you getting so upset over such a small thing? Liam himself said he was leaving with nothing. He doesn't need all that old junk, so I had people pack it up and throw it out." "You threw it out?" Chloe's voice shot up, her eyes turning red. Jason finally sensed that something was seriously wrong, but he shrugged it off. "It's just some old files and office supplies. He didn't want them, so why let them take up space?" Chloe's chest heaved, and the room began to spin. That junk included Liam's treasured work journals, files he had personally organized for her, research they had collected together. 3 years of memories, all casually tossed into the trash by Jason. "What gives you the right?" she practically screamed. "That was his office. His things. What right did you have to touch them?" The room was utterly silent. Everyone was shocked by Chloe's sudden outburst. The smile froze on Jason's face. "Chloe, today is the day I become assistant director. Is it really appropriate for you to yell like this over an outsider?" "An outsider?" Chloe laughed coldly. "Liam worked at Apex for 3 years. Who here would dare call him an outsider?" Her words were a slap in the face, stripping away the last of Jason's triumphant pride. His anger boiled over. "Chloe, have you forgotten?" he hissed. "Who chose me over him? Who was it that said he had to leave with nothing? What is this drama all about now?" "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan rushed to intervene, but Chloe was beyond hearing them. Jason's words stabbed at her heart. That's right. She was the one who had driven Liam away. She was the one who had silently permitted his humiliation. Because of her, Liam had walked out of Apex in nothing but his underwear, ambushed by reporters, and turned into a national laughingstock. "Where are those things now?" she asked the old secretary, her voice trembling. He stammered. "Teach, they should still be at the dumpster downstairs. They were just taken out this afternoon." Without a second thought, Chloe turned and ran for the door. Jason grabbed her wrist, his grip so tight it hurt. "Chloe, are you insane? You're going to abandon me. Abandon all our guests for Liam's pile of trash." She ripped her arm from his grasp, her eyes blazing with an unprecedented fury. "Let go of me. It's not trash. It's... Her voice choked, and she couldn't continue. Jason's expression turned ugly. "Chloe, if you walk out that door today, don't blame me for..." "For what?" She come off icily. "Do to me what you did to Liam? Throw me out with nothing." The retort left Jason speechless, his face paling as a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He was just an assistant. The idea of him firing the heiress of Apex was absurd. He quickly forced a gentle smile. "I'm sorry, Chloe, I was wrong. I shouldn't have touched Liam's things, and I definitely shouldn't have yelled at you. It's pouring outside right now. How about we wait until tomorrow when the weather clears up? I'll go with you to find them." "Okay." Chloe used the moment to break free and plunged into the rain-swept night. The downpour quickly soaked her dress and hair, but she didn't care. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and a voice in her head whispered a mournful sigh. Too late. It's all too late. She took out her phone to call Liam, but her hand froze. She remembered with a jolt that when Liam left Apex yesterday, he had left his phone behind. The image of his calm gaze as he departed, the finality in his actions as he removed each piece of clothing, flooded her mind. "Liam." Rain and tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry." At the building's loading dock, a janitor was about to lock up when a soaking wet young woman stumbled in. "The things that were thrown out from Apex this afternoon, where are they?" Chloe asked, gasping for breath as rain dripped from her hair. The janitors exchanged looks, then pointed to several large, soggy cardboard boxes in the corner. Chloe lunged at them, frantically tearing them open. Liam's files, his supplies, his notebooks, all of it was drenched. The ink had bled, the pages were stuck together. Her hands shaking, she picked up a waterlogged journal and carefully opened it. Liam's neat handwriting was blurred, but she could still make out the words. Chloe worked late again today because Jason forgot to prepare her materials. I redid the report. She didn't say thank you, but seeing her look of relief was enough for me. Chloe has a cold, 101 degrees. I left medicine on her desk. Jason didn't show up until the afternoon. He only brought a bouquet of flowers, but Chloe smiled so happily. Every page was about her. Every line was steeped in Liam's silent, unacknowledged love. Chloe's vision blurred. She clutched the journal to her chest, as if it could somehow undo the damage. A janitor cautiously reminded her, "Miss, we're about to close." Chloe seemed not to hear him, continuing to rummage through the boxes. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against something hard. It was a handmade picture frame. Though soaked, its intricate craftsmanship was still visible. She remembered this frame. On her birthday last year, she had casually mentioned wanting a unique frame, something you couldn't buy in a store. A month later, Liam gave this to her, with a photo of the three of them inside. At the time, she had barely glanced at it, completely oblivious to the dozens of small cuts on his hands. "Oh, just put it over there," she had said dismissively, before turning to happily unwrap the gift Jason had given her. Chloe gripped the frame, a heart-wrenching sob escaping her lips. The rain washed over her face, but it couldn't cleanse the soul-crushing regret. She raised her phone and called her father, her voice thick with tears. "Dad, help me find Liam. Please, I'm begging you." The day after my meeting with the elder Mr. Sterling, I accompanied them to New York City. In front of a towering skyscraper that scraped the clouds, Mr. Sterling smiled warmly. "Liam, as of today, you're the chief advisor for Sterling Capital. To help you get started and to ensure everyone gives you the respect you deserve, I'm assigning Ava to be your assistant. Whatever you need, just ask her. I believe in your talent. Don't hold back. As for Apex, you don't need to worry about them. I'll handle everything." I glanced at Ava and gave a silent nod. Time flew. 3 years passed in a blur. At the celebration for Sterling Capital's successful overseas IPO, the brilliant crystal chandeliers bathed the grand ballroom in light. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing down at the spectacular city skyline, a champagne flute swirling gently in my hand. "Liam, what are you thinking about?" Ava's voice, soft as the wind, came from behind me. She wore a silver gown tonight, her hair swept up, revealing a long, elegant neck. She was as beautiful as a swan. "Nothing really. It just feels a bit surreal," I said, turning to cling my glass with hers. "I never thought Sterling could come this far in just 3 years." She laughed, her eyes shining with admiration. "That's because we have you, our chief advisor." I shook my head. It was mainly the Sterling family's foundation and your own bold leadership. I was just adding the finishing touches. "You're always so modest," she said, stepping closer, her gaze fixed on mine. "But I don't want to hear polite formalities tonight." My heart skipped a beat. Her gaze was too intense to avoid. "Liam," she whispered my name, her tone firm. "The IPO is just the beginning. The road ahead, I want to walk it with you. Not as a business partner, but as—" "Ava," I interrupted, my voice tinged with bitterness. "You know my past." "I know," she nodded without hesitation. "So what? You deserve to be cherished. And I want to be that person. They didn't value you, but I will. I absolutely will." The noise of the ballroom seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of her breathing in my ears. I was silent for a long moment before finally sigh. "I'm not sure I can trust in relationships anymore." "Then try trusting me," she said, reaching out and gently taking my hand. "Just once." Her palm was warm and soft, like a beam of light cutting through the last shadows in my heart. I looked in her eyes, and finally I nodded. "Okay." Her face lit up, her smile blooming like a flower. The next second, she stood on her toes and pressed a light kiss to my cheek. A ripple of good-natured laughter went through the nearby guests. My ears grew warm, but I didn't pull away. After returning to New York, Ava and I gradually went public with our relationship. Mr. Sterling was delighted and began entrusting more of the family's affairs to me. Under my direction, Sterling Capital's empire continued to expand, and Ava was always there, standing by my side. On the 4th of July, Sterling Capital officially announced our engagement, and the news shot to the top of the trending charts. Apex reject to marry Sterling heiress. What reject? The man is now the de facto head of Sterling Capital. Such an inspirational story. I remember when he left Apex with nothing but his boxers. I wonder if the folks at Apex are kicking themselves right now. Of course they are. Apex today is a shadow of its former self. Serves them right for throwing away a diamond in the rough. The next evening, on my way home, my Bentley was stopped at a red light when a woman suddenly stepped in front of the car. My bodyguard moved to intercept her, but I stopped him. "Miss Sullivan," I said calmly, "is there something I can help you with?" It was Chloe. I hadn't seen her in years. She was much thinner, and her face was etched with weariness. She was silent for a few seconds, then spoke, her voice choked with emotion. I want to talk to you. Can we please talk? There's no need, I replied flatly. I've already let go of the past. But I haven't, she cried out, her voice rising. Liam, I know I was wrong. I really, truly know I was wrong. I've been looking for you for these past 3 years, but the Sterling family blocked all information. It wasn't until yesterday that I found out you were in New York.